Vice President Mike Pence sure seems to hate the Affordable Care Act these days, but if you dip into his time as governor of Indiana, it turns out that he has actually, in some cases, used it in ways that were extremely beneficial to some of those most vulnerable in his state. This happened back just a year ago during an HIV epidemic. So Pence signed his state's Medicaid expansion known as the Healthy Indiana Plan 2.0 back in 2015, the same year as the HIV outbreak, and it had some positive effects. His health department relied heavily on the program to respond to the HIV crisis in southern Indiana. Officials set up a free needle exchange and offered hot meals, HIV screenings, vaccinations, and assistance to help people enroll in insurance, many for the first time through HIP 2.0. Which is basically just the Indiana version of Medicaid expansion programs at the state level that we've seen in a number of different states. Now, some generally Republican governors refuse to set up those sorts of state programs. And we've seen when you compare the health outcomes of states with the expansion and without it, it was probably a good idea in most cases. Thankfully, Pence actually did it. And we've got a quote from a Department of Health spokesperson talking about some of the effects of these programs. So this is Jenny O'Malley, who says, a lack of health insurance was one of the first barriers to testing and treatment identified in Scott County, one of the worst hit areas during this epidemic. HIP 2.0 helped address that gap and open doors to medical care and treatment that have been life-changing for people living with HIV and hepatitis C. And then we get to the present. And the problem here is that Pence doesn't like Obamacare. His administration doesn't like it, and Republicans have said that they are going to get rid of it. And the problem there is that while HIP 2.0 is a state-level program, its funding comes overwhelmingly through the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah.
Now, is it possible that the funding could be found from some other source if the ACA was repealed? It's possible, but that hasn't been discussed. I haven't seen Mike Pence talking about that. He says he wants to keep the program going, but he has never, in my experience, talked about where that funding would come from. And the people who are depending on it for their HIV treatment right now in Indiana, and those with any number of different conditions who rely on any number of different state-level programs, are all at risk at the if the ACA were to be repealed.
Okay, first a dumb point. HIP 2.0 sounds like a Missy Elliott song, like she's coming back.
Maybe an album.
You know? Yeah, like an album. Now an actual point that should matter a little bit, I guess. Look, I think that this is a perfect example of so many progressive policies that we've been advocating for, right? When it comes to how you deal with drug abuse, how you deal with, safe sites where people can do injections of drugs that they're addicted to so they don't rely on sharing needles. When it comes to how you care for the public through healthcare.
Yeah.
Like all of these things worked when it came to this county. This county dealt with a serious opioid epidemic, a serious drug epidemic, and so instead of criminalizing all of them and treating them like crap, you actually provide healthcare.
Yeah.
And so the fact that someone like Pence and Republicans in general hate Obamacare is just crazy to me because yes, there are serious problems with Obamacare. There are serious gaps that need to be fixed, serious flaws that need to be fixed. But at the same time, Obamacare helped the lives and saved the lives of so many people, my mom being one of them. My mom who had a pre-existing condition, needed a kidney transplant, and without Obamacare would be denied by health insurance companies, right? So that's just one example. And the argument against Obamacare that people constantly go to is, well, the premiums are just too high, which I agree, the premiums are high, and they did increase throughout Obamacare, but they were increasing already. And so you do away with Obamacare, who knows what the premiums would look like, and we'll see. I mean, we'll see what happens when they repeal it. Exactly.
Exactly. And look, Pence voted against the program that he would later use to help these people out. And we're going to find out because they say they want to repeal it. They say they want to do it this year. And we know almost nothing about what the replacement programs would look like.
Well, to be fair, they don't know anything about it.
They don't appear to know.
Yeah.
And look, these sorts of programs, someone who's living in Scott County, Indiana, they go and they get help through HIP 2.0. And for most people, they would never connect to that with Obamacare. This is a state program. I love it. Look, Pence set this up. But that program could go away, and hundreds of other programs could go away. And the people who are going to be hurt by that don't just live in San Francisco. They don't just live in Portland and Rhode Island. They live in the most hard-hit economically areas of this country. We're talking about Indiana and other rural parts of the country who are going to lose out on programs that they've now become accustomed to. And they don't even know that the people they voted for are working every day to make that happen. And the suffering will come, and hopefully there will still be enough lingering trust in the media that when they find out that it was their own politicians who took away that coverage, who took away those benefits, hopefully there will be a moment of realization that they've gone down a terrible path and that perhaps there's still time to go in a different direction.
Yeah. I just wanted to add one final thing to this story, one final comment. I am happy with how the state dealt with this issue, especially because we see drug abuse becoming more and more of a problem throughout the country. Heroin addiction is a huge problem in the U.S. right now. However, I do find it fascinating that for the first time in a very long time in the U.S., we treat drug addiction the way that it should have been treated for a long time. We help those who are addicted to heroin. In the majority of cases, there seems to be a lot of empathy toward these people, and I think the reason why we're seeing that empathy is because of the demographic that it's impacting, and it's white individuals.
Yeah.
Right? For a long time, the propaganda has indicated that, oh, it's the minorities and the immigrants, they're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, right? But then you look at the numbers when it comes to heroin addiction, and it disproportionately impacts white communities throughout the country. And now all of a sudden, even the most conservative politicians want to do something positive to actually help them as opposed to criminalize them. Now, again, that is the right way to handle it, and I'm glad that they're handling it that way. But just understand that there has been a double standard between the way minorities have been treated when it comes to drug addiction and how white people have been treated when it comes to addiction.
Yeah. Let's put some watchers on the wall. Investigative journalists to run down the Trump administration and the establishment. You can make that happen. TYTnetwork.com/go.